Hi, this is Timothy Bostic. My week 2 practical application for the gunsmithing tools lab. And I just wanted to do a quick sweep of my work area so that we can see that there is no live ammunition. Workspace isn't the ideal workspace, but it's going to have to do. Today I am using my AR-15. It is chambered in 5.56. It is manufactured by American Tactical. For demonstration purposes, I'm using a 10-round magazine. It is empty. There is no ammunition in it. I do not have any snap caps at the moment, so I can't use those. First things first, I'm going to run the bolt back to ensure that there's nothing in the chamber. Nothing in the chamber came out. You can't really see. Yeah, I'm working on it. There's nothing in the chamber. I'm going to ensure that my firearm is on safe. And you can see that this is the safe position. And my firearm is set to safe. If I pull the trigger, it should not fire. The trigger should not pull back. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to do a quick function check. I am going to put my empty magazine in. I am going to slide my bolt to the rear. And since there is no rounds in the magazine, the bolt should lock to the rear. As such, my bolt did lock to the rear. I'm going to push my charging handle back in. I am going to press the bolt carrier release. Let the bolt slide forward. At this point, I'm going to double check and make sure that there's nothing live in my chamber. I am going to once again make sure that the trigger does not pull on safe. I am going to switch the fire selector to fire after obviously clearing and checking to make sure. I'm going to pull my trigger back slowly. Fired. After pulling the trigger, my trigger should reset after I pull the bolt back a little bit. There we go. Reset. I can now put it back on safe. And we can move on. So, field stripping my AR-15. Field strip on the AR-15 platform is relatively simple. It only consists of a few steps. I'm going to pull out a punch to push these pins. Pull out a punch. I am going to push these pins. Push that pin. I am going to pull back on my charging handle, which is going to release my bolt carrier. I'm going to pull that out. I am going to tap with the plastic, with the rubber side of my mallet. Just a little tap, just enough to get it started. At which point I can pull it the rest of the way out, and I can slide the barrel off of. I can slide the barrel and the upper receiver off of the lower receiver. I can inspect my fire control group here. Since there is no magazine, I can move it from safe to fire to watch the action of the fire control group. And after that, I will push in my buffer spring enough to get that little retaining pin down. Pull out my buffer spring, check my buffer spring, make sure it's not worn or damaged. She needs a good cleaning. Check the tube, make sure that there's nothing wrong with that. push her back in, clips back in with the little pin, pops back up, she just slides over it, make sure she's seated. And I have these really cheap pop-up sights that I can't see through the CCO anyway. I need to get the CCO on the riser. I'm gonna give my forward assist a little pump to see that it's working correctly. Do a visual inspection, physical inspection, make sure there's nothing in the chamber. No obstructions. I can look down the, where's my camera? There it is. See, we can look down the barrel from the end of the upper receiver. See that there's no round in the chamber. There's no obstructions in the barrel. After that, I'm going to move on to the bolt carrier, which is going to require me to take out my little pin here. Grab a little skinny punch to get in there. Little skinny punch, get in there. Pop that little retaining pin out. Give it a little tap. Get my grody looking firing pin out. I'm going to rotate this block. Pull it out. Now that I've got it out, I can pull the bolt itself out. Quick visual inspection of it. Like I said, it's icky. I really need to clean it. Ensure that everything's functioning correctly. Put it back together. Slide it in. Slide the bolt in. Put your retaining block back in. Rotate it 90 degrees so that the firing pin will go in. Drop that down in there. Get it down in there. Give it a little nudge. Get it to seat into place. And we're going to put this pin back in to ensure that the firing pin doesn't decide it wants to walk away. Personally, my least favorite part about putting it back together, because the pin never wants to slide in the way it's supposed to. There we go. Right. Pull the bolt forward. Ensure that everything stays where it's supposed to. Then put your charging handle back over the gas tube. Slide it back in. Got to make sure the bolt's forward first, because if not, a little block will catch on the side of the receiver and it won't let it go in there. Now that it's seated, take the lower receiver and the upper receiver, slide the front post, close your dust cover because it gets in the way sometimes. I'm going to line up the holes so that you can always do it like this too. Just set it on there, line up the holes so that you can push this hinge pin back in. Then you're going to push this locking pin back in. Make sure everything seats upright. Slide it through, and she is put back together. Then you slide the magazine in. Once again, empty magazine or a magazine with snap caps. Slide it in. Bring your bolt to the rear. Since it's empty, it's going to lock. Do a quick functions test. Ensure everything moves smoothly. Always make sure it's not in an unsafe direction. Once again, since it's empty, the trigger is not going to reset. But if I pull back on the charging handle just a little bit, about halfway, it'll reset it. I can put my firearm back to safe. Now that it's set on safe, I can pull on the trigger to make sure that it is indeed locked in the safe position. And that is how the field strip goes.